Okay, new activity means we're starting with, there we go, learning targets. Go ahead, break them down. Okay, so we know this activity is going to have us practicing identifying the definition strategies, which you will be using for your essay, as well as forming an initial definition. All right, we're going to be focusing in on that subtitle, Writing to Define, and very quickly, just go ahead and highlight what you see on the screen. It's just a very quick reminder of what your assessment is. Writing a definition for heroism. And below that, it's starting to hint towards your in-question today. Now, your in-question asks you, what are the three parts of speech, adjective, noun, and verb? And you tend to use those with the three definition strategies that you're going to be learning about. So what I'm going to have you do before we explain what number one is all about, I want you to go ahead and make that chart that you see on the screen. So 3 columns. One will be for adjective, the center will be for noun, and the right is for verb. So step one is asking you to come up with as many adjectives, nouns, and verbs to help define a hero. So they give us an example of an adjective that could describe a hero as brave. So we go ahead and put that into the chart since they provided that for us. They give us a noun that defines what a hero shows, and Springboard says, well, heroes show courage. And then a verb, an action that a hero does, well, they do physically fight. Some of them do. Some of them fight with words to set their point. So I want you to take about a minute and with a partner or your family, generate as many adjectives, nouns, and verbs that you think qualify into the status of a hero as you can. Go ahead. All right, folks, what were some adjectives that you came up with? What did you come up with, Santiago? Determination. All right. Another adjective? That's got a hero on least? Committed, you said? I like that, committed. What about nouns? What's a hero show aside from courage? Yeah, Chloe? Positivity. What else? Michael? Perseverance. Perseverance. Fantastic. Okay, what about verbs? What actions?
Protect.
They protect. Defend? Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. And they help. These are all great verbs. Okay, so you started to get the idea rolling with what exactly could define a hero. We're going to take a step further now, and we're going to start looking at the definition strategies themselves. Okay, so the bottom section of the page, there's a quick blurb about a literary term of a definition essay. Just quickly go ahead and highlight the intro there, because that is what you are going to be making. So I'm sure at this moment you probably could define what a hero is, but the tricky part is now turning it into an essay. So being able to really broach the subject, have a lot of content about it. And that's where the definition strategies are going to come into play. So below that subtitle of defining a concept, very quickly just highlight what you see. These are the three definition strategies. They're known as the function, example, and negation strategy. And this is also your answer to today's out. So right below where you highlighted, there are 3 bullet points. And these are what the definition strategies really mean. So we're going to do a quick highlighting process here too. And we'll go through each one at a time. All right, so definition by function means that the term is going to be explained based on how it operates. What does it physically do? Definition by example means that a term is given multiple examples from text or real life. And negation is where a term is explained by stating what it is not. Now, there's a few notes I'm going to have you take on each one as well, and it might help clarify a little bit more how these strategies work or how you make them. All right, so the function strategy uses verbs and adjectives. Heroes are brave. I'm defining a hero by describing it. Heroes fight for what is right. I'm defining a hero by explaining what they can physically do. Okay, now, example strategy, it uses nouns and proper nouns. So we're giving specific names of maybe individuals or situations. Heroes show multiple levels of intelligence. Intelligence is a noun, it's a thing. A historical hero would be Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for civil rights. Martin Luther King Jr. is a proper noun. It's the name of a person, and I'm using that person to explain what a hero looks like. Lastly, negation. Negation uses a lot of negative connotation. So you'd see phrases such as does not, will not, cannot, is not. A hero is not selfish. I'm explaining to you that a hero is defined by being selfless. A hero will never back down to a challenge. So I'm explaining and defining what a hero will not do. All right, when you're ready, you can go ahead and turn to page 62. And we're going to be practicing these definition strategies by first being able to pick out what type of strategy, where does it look like. So on page 62, we're going to take a couple of notes real quick, and then we'll get into the thick of it. Go ahead and read number 3 for us, please, Donovan.
Read the following and whether they contain definitions of example be able to explain one that are categorized by the definition. First, highlight the topic being defined, then decide the type of definition.
Thanks. All right, now, the academic vocab gives you a quick blurb on 2 out of the 3 definition strategies, and instead of using them, I prefer giving questions for you folks to kind of think about in order to identify the strategy that you've got. So function strategy would always answer the following. Does it describe the term? Does it state what it does? Okay, so function again, it's using adjective, it's using verb. Negation, is it describing this term by telling me what it is not? An example is pretty straightforward. Are you getting examples of nouns, proper nouns, or no? All right, so going back to step 3, it's telling us before we even try to examine what these pieces are, we've got to first highlight what exactly is the topic that's being defined. So we're going to go through each one of the bullet points, and real quick, we're just going to highlight what was the topic or the concept that we're giving a definition of. So in the first bullet point, the concept being defined is family. In the second bullet point, we're getting a definition of nonfiction. In the third bullet point, love is being defined. And I'm going to have you write brackets next to each of the bullet points. If you want to put them on the left-hand side, you can, if you've got more room that way. But we're going to be marking in the text which type of strategy we think has appeared. The last thing that we're going to do, the fourth quote, I just want you to cross off. We're not going to touch that one today. We might come back to it later. But for now, we'll just keep it crossed off. So we're going to go ahead and read each quote aloud. We'll get a moment to go ahead and discuss, all right, what could it possibly be in terms of a definition strategy? And then we'll go ahead and do some answer review. So could you read the first quote for us, please, Jaden, without the Y?
Just for the purposes of discussion, let us say what are those towards nurturing oneself, loyalty, and obligation. And okay, now did this quote describe
describe what family is? Is it? I can't hear you. I can't see you guys going yay. Okay, so some of you are going yes. All right. Did it all tell us what a family is not? No, not at all. You folks are getting on the right track. Did it give us an example of a family, giving us the proper name of a family, ever? There really isn't one. There isn't a proper name of a family. What you're looking at is function, because it's describing what a family is. Family is loyalty. Family is obligation. Family gives identity. There's our verb, giving us something. It shares something. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. Go ahead and read that second one for us, please, Tiffany.
It always seems odd to me that nonfiction is defined not by what it is, but by what it is not. It is not fiction, but then again, it is also not poetry, or technically writing, or literature. It's like defining classical music as non-jazz.
Okay, take a moment. I have those green questions up again, too. You can always ask yourself that question, and if your answer is yes, that's going to be the strategy that's being used. So in this example, is nonfiction described, or is nonfiction given an action? No. So what's the obvious answer here that it just keeps saying again and again and again? Yeah, why is it negation? What is it doing? What's it doing there, Christian? Yeah, I keep saying, well, nonfiction is not this, it's not that. All right, now let's take a look at the third one. All right, go ahead and read that one for us. Victoria?
Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends.
Okay, take a moment. And it can always be more than one strategy, too. Okay, so does the example tell us what love is not?
Yes.
Yes, well, obviously negation. Does it describe love? It does. Does it give us a specific example of love? Nope. It doesn't give us a specific example. So it's going to be both function and negation. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. So you're going to be looking at the fourth quote here. And the fourth quote, this one is going to be defining a lady. We're going to be defining the topic of a lady. All right. And Michael, could you read that quote for us? Yes.
From Michelle Moxford, I just speak to Jem about Mr. DeGoes. You know, she was a great lady. A lady? Jem raised his hand. His face was scarlet. After all those things she said about you, a lady? She was. She had her own views about things. A lot different from mine, maybe. Son, I told you that if you hadn't lost your head, I'd have made you go read to her. I wanted you to see something about her. I wanted you to see what real courage is, instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand. It's when you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway, and you see it through no matter what. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. Mrs. DeGoes won, all 98 pounds of her. According to her views, she died beholden to nothing and nobody. She was the bravest person I ever knew.
Thanks. All right, take a moment. Decide what you think it could be out of the three. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now, this one, depending on your argument, you could be 100% correct in your response. There's only one strategy for sure that doesn't really pop up. Which is the one strategy that you feel really isn't applicable to this particular quote? Which one are you thinking, Jim? Negation, 100%. Negation isn't in here. We're not told what a lady is not. So that means that we could state that it is an example. That means we could state that it is function as well, as long as we argue our point. Why would it be example? Why would it be example? Capri, what are you thinking? Really good. It gives us an exact example, a proper noun of a woman named Mrs. Dubois. I've had some other kiddos say, well, keep saying she a lot. That would work too, because she is going to be a noun as well. It's going to be a pronoun. What about function? Where does it start describing anything about a lady? What do you think, Chloe?
Then I told you that you had watched it and you were surgery for when you pick up surgery.
Good. Then it starts explaining, starts describing what it was that she was doing. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the next step. And this one, I'm going to give you some help, but you're also going to try it a little bit on your own.